I've had the privilege of meeting some really high level mentors, really fantastic people who are are showing up and being of service to humanity. And one of these people, she really is the one who has sort of brought me into this idea. And a love warrior is simply someone who meets any gesture, uh, anything that's coming at them. They stop and they pause and say, how can I respond from a place of love? What is needed from me in this moment? And how can I respond from a place of love? Now, that gets really complex. And it's quite challenging. And, Trevor Miller has mentioned this idea before. There's two emotions, love and a call for love.
Hmm.
So we look at what supports that idea. The phrase, people will probably understand this: hurt people hurt people.
Mm-hmm.
So I think this is really what this is about. And the first thing I want to help people to realize is that their sensitivity is a superpower. People who develop mental health issues often do so because they feel things really deeply, right? So people who get traumatized often do so because they feel things really deeply. And what I've noticed, and especially in my work with people with addictions, these are some of the most beautiful, compassionate, considerate people. And contrary to the popular view that, people with addictions lie, they cheat, they steal. I mean, they do harm. They do harm because often they're in pain and they're not getting their needs met. And then they end up developing a problematic relationship with the substance.
Mm-hmm.
So I think the first thing to compute, because that's quite a lot to add up, is the fact that we're undergoing pretty massive cultural shifts.
Mm-hmm.
Gabor Mate, in his new book, has highlighted this, and that the culture is toxic. And I think emotional suppression, the tendency in our culture towards emotional suppression or hiding one's sensitivity and sacrificing one's authenticity in the service of attachment. These are dynamics that influence or create this poison water that we're all swimming in. And so I think, part of the shift that we're going through and what's needed from people who are called to be of service, helping to ease suffering, is helping people see that there's nothing wrong with them for feeling bad, individually and collectively. When we're in pain, there's the pain itself. There's the, depression, anxiety, low self-worth, the trauma that happens inside of us. That's, considered clean pain. This comes from acceptance and commitment therapy. It's probably a Buddhist idea too. But then there's the way people turn against themselves and say, there's something wrong with me for this. That's dirty pain. It's my fault. Shame. It's when we've been hurt and then we have the shame about it and we turn against ourselves, right? So there's a lot going on there individually and collectively. And I think the first stage in the birth of the love warrior is showing up to your own pain.
Mm-hmm.
And it has to be safe to do this. And there are skills that can help with this. But I think another thing I want to say about that is I've noticed this in this movement that we're in right now. Everyone wants to know what's the best path towards becoming a psychedelic therapist. I mean,
mm-hmm.
We don't know yet. I think, Atma, you guys are doing fantastic work. There's others that are doing this. Oregon, there's going to be some stuff that likely comes out of that in the path forward. But right now we don't really know. So I think the first thing we can do is learn how to show up to our own pain more compassionately, to integrate it. Anything that we carry that we haven't been able to integrate, it's going to show up in a field when we're sitting or guiding people. And the risk is that people in non-ordinary states of consciousness are very sensitive to that type of stuff. And so the risks are, if we haven't really, and I'm not talking about perfection, that's not the goal here. But if we have big things that we haven't been able to heal or integrate or make more coherent in our story, our narrative of who we are, that stuff's going to get in the way of other people's process when we try to show up and sit for them. So, along with having a meditation practice, learning to be still, learning to be present with ourselves, I think really showing up to our own pain is critical in our development process for becoming psychedelic guides or therapists. And it's also kind of why I would say it's really the first part in this idea of being a love warrior, is learning how to come home to yourself, to the parts that are wounded. And we really can't use shame to fix an original shame problem. I think in our culture, there's this tendency to focus on what's wrong with us, self-improvement, self-growth. A lot of times I'll be working with clients. I'm like, your homework is to do nothing. Stop working so hard. Just be, flaws and all. Learn to, be with yourself instead of trying so hard to fix yourself. Yeah. Right. And that's sometimes what happens, is this self-rejection in the service of coming home to oneself or reclaiming one's authenticity. And it just doesn't work. All right. Here's how I came to this idea about being a love warrior. I had the opportunity to work with this really gifted therapist, and I thought I was doing pretty good. And so, but it was like, wow, I want to do this, right? I want this to take advantage of this opportunity. So was working with her, and she asked permission to hold me big. And I said, okay, sure. Bring it on. I don't know what that's really about, but I'm not going to say no to that. And, it was pretty intense what happened after that. But what I took from it, and what I realized after I was able to integrate this experience of this therapeutic work, this was a couple of years ago. Really, I didn't even know this, but I was operating as a therapist at that time, running from my own unworthiness by helping people. I would feel good if I could help people and think I was being of service. And really, though, I was kind of just using that feeling good as a hit to cover up my own sense of inferiority. And this is what she said, what I meant when she said, can I hold you big? And she said this. She says, you're doing this for your ego. And I was like, instantly, but I knew it was true. I knew it was true. She was right. And it was a blind spot, and it was hidden from me. So thank God I had this experience, because it's really changed a lot of things. And now I can say that, again, not about perfection, but I really feel committed and connected to showing up and being of service, not for my ego, not so I can feel less inferior, not so I can, get a pat on the back and feel good about the work that I'm doing, puff up my chest, but really just to ease suffering, because there's so much distress in the world right now. So, and I'd say that's the journey of learning to be a love warrior. For me, it's been learning about, how my misguided intentions were hidden from myself. And now my real mission has been to learn to be of service. Mm-hmm. So as far as I can tell, this is a lifelong discipleship in learning to be a love warrior. It's one that I'll never master. It's hard. It's really hard to have, someone come at you with an emotion or an energy, and to feel attacked, but then to kind of say, what does this person need? What's behind this? Where's the call for love? How can I show up and be of service? As opposed to reacting from my psychodynamics and, attacking back. So I think this isn't about fighting against our dynamics or being fake or false positivity or bypassing, but really just learning to use this human machinery better in the service of bringing more love into the world. And it's the hardest thing I've ever done. Again, like I started out saying, it's fundamentally about for me, it's been about owning my sensitivity and making space for this. This isn't a weakness. I've had to retrain myself, you know. I cry so often. I'm so
Mhm.
glad that I do. You know, it's not breaking down, it's breaking through. And, you know, Alfred would say, you know, tears are a sign that we are re-entering the river of life. You know, life is moving through us. We are being moved. And, you know, and I think this is really important. And we could say that the love warrior is, or being a love warrior is about being a leader of the heart. Um, so, yeah. And, you know, I think that um, there's a lot of pain out there. And it's not about transcending pain. I'm never going to transcend pain. As long as I'm alive, my heart is going to break.
Mhm.
You know, and I think this will factor in when we talk more about acceptance and commitment therapy. You know, um, this idea, you read these lists, 3 things emotionally strong people do, or blah blah blah. I always cringe when I hear this idea of emotional strength. Our quality of life is not about being emotionally strong. Our quality of life is about being emotionally flexible.
Mhm.
You know, and again, kind of what these medicines, what psychedelic medicines are really good at working with, is promoting this psychological flexibility. You know, I think that, again, training as a love warrior, again, for me, this is going to be a lifelong discipline, one that I will never master. Um, you know, I got away from it a little bit, working with this mentor, and was just kind of like, not like I'm good, but I had other priorities. And then recently getting called to um, go bigger and being of service, I was like, I can't do this without working on myself constantly. I can't walk away from the mirror and stop looking and trying to see my blind spots. It never ends. I mean, the idea is that a human works on their house their entire life and then they die.
Yeah.
You know, and some people are like, oh, that's a depressing phrase. I don't think so. I don't think so. To me, it just says we're always going to be a work in progress. We can stop working on the house anytime we want and just limit it. That's fine. But it also says to me that if we're not really working on our growth, our integration, you know, we're not really living.
Mhm.
So I plan on being a work in progress for the rest of my life. And so really, again, it's just about learning to better meet any gesture as a call for love. And like I said, it doesn't mean tolerating abuse, not having boundaries. It simply means when we get hurt by life, think someone's doing it intentionally to hurt us, being able to stop and pause and say, how can I respond to this from a place of love?